I had a chip on my shoulder bigger than this stage. People that have known me said I used to walk like this. I had a chip because I didn't go to Ivy League school. I didn't go to MIT. I didn't go to Oxford. I didn't go here. I didn't go there. And I was resentful of it. And when I went back to school after the military and I got straight A's and I was they said I had a brain the size of a planet. I was so fucking smart. How come we didn't figure this out when I was 5 years old? Boy, but when I fired my first Oxford guy, fired my first Cambridge guy, fired my first Stanford guy, then after 15 or 20, I was okay with it. But I certainly wasn't. I mean, I went out of my way to fuck over Ivy League guys. They used to say the saliva used to start dripping down my mouth when I saw a young MBA from one of the big, I-banks, investment banks like Goldman Sachs. He went to Stanford. I'm going to fuck him right in his mouth within the first 5 minutes, I should tell myself. And I did. But now, I still get a chill talking about it, but I don't do that because I'm a kinder, gentler guy. But you got to have something to motivate you. Some of you say it's your kids. Some of you said maybe it's, I hope it's not your wife. But some of you can always get another old lady or another husband. And but I used to think of the 3 kids. I did. Now the kids don't like to hear that. Why are we there, Daddy? Because you influenced me. They'll say under their lips, whether it's a good influence or bad influence. It's an exciting project, and it's not exciting. That's not the right word. It's more interesting for me to be on a board, and right now I'm reducing boards. I've reduced my board about 50% in the last couple of years. That is a firecracker that gets shit done. And I know what a firecracker looks like because I used to be one, and I'm still more of a firecracker than 98% of the people that come to the seminar, and that shouldn't be. But I still have that teaching qualities and mentor qualities, blah, blah, blah. And that's why, people come still at my age. But in the 90s, half the kids in the room had the same firecracker that I was. Half the kids in the room. They were hungry. See, I mean, very few in this room really, they come into this room really are hungry. And they're always hungry for some kind of different reason. Prove this to this person. Prove to IBM you got fired, or Steve Jobs fired. I'll prove them, sometimes proving to your father that you're not a worthless piece of shit, even though you're a 4-time loser from San Quentin prison. But so, you're motivated. But very seldom, even though you may be motivated, you have that fire in your belly, as they say. I've still got it at 76, which is rare. I worry about you not being successful, not just because of the numbers you're going to put on the wall. I worry about it more than you do. And that's not right. World-class coaches worry more about the kids that they coach than they do. Otherwise, you can't do it 20, 30, 40 years like a lot of the world-class coaches do. Like the tennis guy. He's got his own selfish reasons, but he's got 100, now he's up to 193 from 186 when that thing was filmed. 193 world champions. He wants to hit 200 before he croaks. I'm sure he will. He's a little senile, but he's still a terrific coach. But if you don't have the fire in the belly, and you don't have the motivation, this is a motherfucker. This is a motherfucker. And as Simon said this morning from Singapore, even though he thinks about, it's still, you can't, if you're human, and I'm close to not being human, the most not human that you're going to find, it's still, it's like if you close your eyes and those little things that float by, those little, whatever they are, when you close your eye. No, I think one of them is death once in a while, and one of them is failure. It used to be not hitting a trillion, but that's now. So it enters your mind. But it enters my mind like once a month for 100 millionth of a second. It enters your mind every motherfucking day. Every time you pick up the phone, every time you have a face-to-face. That's the difference. And you let it dwell too much because there's not enough positive things going on in your life. You're not doing your affirmations. You're not doing, you're not, when we talk about that tomorrow, you're not doing that stuff. Whenever I used to feel down, I used to, where's the picture? Which wasn't very often, but I used to think of, let's see, where are they? Where's the picture of my 3 kids? Where? Ah, there they were. When I lose focus, and I think of those little 3 kids, you know? But it wasn't very often, because I was a hungry motherfucker. By the way, I want to make an announcement on YouTube right now. I just got an email from Bruce the Whipple, and he and I are in business. And one of his mentees went to a bank in New York, I think, upstate New York maybe, and went to the banker with, warming up banks, and the banker said no, and said you were the 13th deal, QLA, that they've had in, I don't know if it was a month or recent weeks, because people that don't come to the seminar, and it said I was their chairman. And I was their chairman, okay? And so QLA's dead at that bank, you know, and they wouldn't care if it was the greatest deal since sliced bread. And a lot of people, more and more people are misusing, not the QLA model so much, but they're putting pretend boards forward. And what the bank doesn't do enough is to check if those fuckers are actually on the board. Because I've got not one email, one phone call from any bank in fucking 15 years to verify if I was on the board. And in that particular request, I told them I was on the board. It was the truth. So I just want you to know, and we will hunt down, just like we've hunted down a few others that have been selling my product illegally. We're going to hunt down these 12 people, and there's ways of getting a hold of them, and I'm going to, do whatever's necessary to make sure they stop doing it. But I'm glad I thought about that. It is just normal due diligence.
Second thing, question, not related. After we've completed our first 5, 10, or more deals, etc. Yesterday you mentioned there were 20 or so shortcuts. How would we go about getting these?
Well, some of the shortcuts you're going to stumble upon yourself. I mean, just because you're doing it. But you heard the one guy that utilized his board in a slightly different way. And those are obvious shortcuts because the board members will say, hey, I'll take care of that. Okay, now I can't see anybody of your board saying that to you. Oh, don't worry about that. I got that covered. But regular board members to a regular QLA bot will say, no, I got that covered. Or I'll go to the 3 of the 4, big 4, and I'll get that squared away. You don't have to worry about that. That's what they're supposed to do. You don't tell them to do that. But by this, but those are some of the shortcuts where you utilize your board to go get the accountants, lawyers, even the industry experts, because they're going to be involved in the general lateral or vertical, They'll know if you've been an accountant in healthcare for 25 years, 50 industry experts. If you've been a lawyer in that area, a gazillion industry experts. So those are the shortcuts. But I mean, it's not that it's a tip, but I mean, it just comes to fruition after the group has been together a while. And the reason why, just like they don't lift up the kimono and give them all your contacts, because you're just, you're a potential entity. Potentially, they're going to be board members. When you choose them, they're potential board members. They're not board members until you have the board meeting, and they're assigned officially the shares, their position. And in some cases, I'm not hot on this, where you actually give them, the description of what they're supposed to do. I don't like that because it may change. Okay? You give them a tight description, and in Europe, they won't do anything other than that description. I mean, in Switzerland, the description's got to be from here to the castle, and they're looking at their watch, how much time. And the other thing they ask, and which is important, in the interviewing process, when they're European, they'll say, I'm very interested, if I can add value, subject to conflict, I am interested. How much time do you envisage, as they say here, me spending? And it's because they're very much more conscious of time than Americans. And then you say, legitimately, with a hand on your heart, 4 to 6 hours a month to begin with. And that's really true, because you're going to have nothing to do. 4 to 6 hours. And as we have transaction flow, it could be, 10 to 15 hours a month. And they'll appreciate that. They'll appreciate that. And most of the hours that will equate to that range is when you got a deal and you're reviewing it and you're doing due diligence and you're actually going out to see it. Because in the beginning, just as I spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes looking at her numbers, a board member would spend 10, 15 minutes. So that's, 10, 15 minutes a month. And she brings 4 or 5 deals, hopefully not from Poland. So it's not very much time. And if you take the time, the company I was referring to earlier that's going public in a few months, these guys are going to get paid like a few $1,000,000 for maybe 100 hours. And the best example and the live example, and I used to use, and the kids use it, is the deal that I did, the board members I had that I gave 2% to, at the end when we exited, they each got $9 million. The guy that had 10% got $90 million. Or excuse me, 5 times, $45 million. $9 million, that's $1 million a year for maybe 10 hours a year. That's the best payment program they'll ever have. And you can say that honestly, and that was my experience. And some of the other kids' experience is even better than that.